Welcome to Thinking Green. I'm Rana, and well, you all have noticed that the weather has gotten a lot better lately, and my guests tonight are both from Bike New London, and I know that people who love to cycle do it in all kinds of weather, but most of the rest of us start thinking about that a lot more during this time of year. So I'd like to welcome tonight Bareiss and Theo Maryeski from Bike New London, and we're going to talk about the history of the group and what it's up to now and things to look forward to. So welcome both of you.
Thank you, Rana.
Thanks for having us, Rana.
I guess I'm interested in how each of you got involved in an organized group about, related to bicycling.
Well, I was invited to Bike New London right at the beginning. Bike New London formed out of a group of Shoreline East One More Stop supporters, sort of informally. It was I think there was actually an ad in the newspaper that invited people who were interested in a new bicycle advocacy group forming in late 2008, early 2009. And we began meeting regularly, and I was elected the second chairperson of the group after the original chairman moved away to do bigger and better things on the West Coast. So I've been involved in the group since basically since we began doing things as a group. We've talked to all sorts of city councilors and public works people and state and local transportation officials. We are involved and concerned with bicycle safety and bicycle access for everybody of all ages and abilities throughout New London and New London County.
And part of what frustrates me thinking about it is that New London has such a small footprint that we could really go everywhere in New London by bike if it was set up for it.
Well, New London is a very bikeable city, and our mission is to make it a more bicycle-friendly city.
And that's kind of how I got involved with Bike New London. I was just the guy who bikes. I just ride and ride and ride and ride, and I was involved.
And some of the viewers might recognize you, sort of, except they usually see you on a bike.
A bike, a kayak, a skateboard, running, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I was also involved in One More Stop with Richie Caruso back in the day. And I'd loosely give a hand to Bike New London at certain activities, certain events, but was in no way, shape, or form involved in the daily planning or organization of the organization. Mm-hmm. But last year, we were given a phenomenal opportunity through Create Here Now and different organisms that really interested me because I saw a chance to work with the younger generation, the kids. Mm-hmm. And at that time, figured, hey, this would be a great time to join Bike New London, partner up with them, start an actual bike shop, empower kids, and next thing you know, yeah, it's go Bike New London.
And we will talk in detail about the current activities. I was a little interested in what the earlier activities of Bike New London were. What were some of the first things you focused on and got accomplished?
Bike New London has had one of the events that we've done has been an annual Bike Fest, which has different components. One is the big focus is bicycle safety for kids. So it's hands-on teaching for them, as well as distributing helmets. We've had great success, great help from the New London Kiwanis. They've made it part of their mission to promote bicycling safety for kids and have distributed hundreds and hundreds of helmets.
94 last year alone.
Yeah,
at the event.
One event last year, we gave out everything we had, and we had to go back. Kiwanis brought more boxes of helmets. It was really wonderful to see that response. That was at a Riverside Park event. The Bike Fest events that we held were on City Pier and Waterfront Park. We moved it a couple times during the time when City Pier was under reconstruction, but we had great support from the Downtown New London Association for that, as well as New London Police Department, and we included with those events free bicycle repairs, helped in a large part by your own husband.
But I think the cornerstone activity where Bike New London came from was with Sean Spellman back in the day. You know, the actual origins of Bike New London was, you know, that bike lane.
Well, that was actually, I was going to get to that. If we have one achievement that I'd like to hold up the flag and tell everyone about, it's that we approached City Council in 2011 regarding the rebuild of Montauk Avenue. Now, there had been bike lanes painted on Montauk a long time ago.
Very haphazardly, right?
They were from the mid-'70s. They weren't compliant with any kind of current highway regulations. And they'd faded away almost completely. They'd been torn up. They had they weren't used popularly because they weren't thought out very well. They'd been on the pavement, so there's a historic aspect to it, of continuing that. But Montauk Avenue is fortunately one of the few streets in this dense little 17th century city that is wide enough, because it was built late in New London's history. It's one of the last major streets built, and it's actually wide enough to carry travel lanes, bicycle lanes, and parking. You need a certain physical size to the street to do that.
Right, and not that many streets in New London can accommodate.
Not a lot of streets can have have space for both the parking and a formal bike lane. You can have bike routes where bicycles and cars share the lane. You know, that's part of what the state promotes with the Share the Road website. That's something that's run by DOT. But the idea of actually having separated bike lanes painted on the road worked very well on Montauk Avenue. When we initially approached Public Works, they said, and we knew that the planning was going ahead and they were going to rebuild Montauk Avenue. They built it in 2 stages, first from Bank Street to the hospital, and then secondly from the hospital
Right,
south.
in the middle there was a lot of digging, like gas.
Well, there was a tremendous amount of utility work that had to happen first. So it got worse before it got better. The final product I'm very happy with, and I'm very glad that we took the initiative to speak to City Council, because I'm not certain that it would have been in the planning. The street would have been rebuilt, and I don't believe the paint and the signs and the engineering that needed to go into it would have.
The first attempt actually wasn't the painting.
Well,
was actually kind of gravy.
Now there were two steps to that, because Montauk Avenue was being professionally rebuilt, really rebuilt on the northern section from Bank Street to School Street by a contractor. The southern half of it, the lanes actually got finished. The original rendition of the lanes got finished first, and they were done by the town, and they didn't know what the contractors were going to build yet. So they put the lanes down, and they did a good job with the resources they had. They had to reconfigure them around some intersections, and then they proceeded to, unfortunately, that was all dug up shortly after for other utility work. So those couldn't really get utilized until the entire street was finished and rebuilt. The final product looks great. It works for a lot of people. There are always some folks who have different ideas about the conventions of how the lanes should be, but they meet all the DOT requirements. They're generally 5 feet in width, and if you've looked at them in detail, they feed into intersections with dashed lines, which indicate to both the cyclist and the driver that at that point, cars and bicycles will be in the same lane. Cars may be turning. It tells you to use extra caution.
I use them on a daily basis.
Yeah, so you're...
I use that. I mean, that's an axis that I travel on. We're actually going to be using it this upcoming Friday. You know, we'll be using it for Bike to Work Day, where we'll be leaving from Daryl's house.
Yep.
Some of us will be getting together there and actually using these lanes that the town put in to make our way safely downtown.
So as I guess you know, May is Bike Month, and May, usually the second or third Friday in May is Bike to Work Day. Which is it's not a national holiday, but it's promoted.
Maybe it should be.
It's promoted on a national basis by the League of American Bicyclists. And it's gained recognition just about all across the country. I mean, every city that has some kind of bicycle advocacy organization is putting together Bike to Work Week, Bike to Work Day, Bike to School Days. All through the month of May.
And it's incentivized in different ways, too. There's certain companies that are offering free breakfast, and not only on a daily basis. It's not gotten to that level in New London, but we are going to practice it. We are going to all get together.
And this year, L&M Hospital is promoting a Bike to Work Day event with free breakfast for their employees that ride. Yep,
that's on. That's great.
That's on that morning. May 15th. And we actually, Bike New London, signed up folks to join that ride on Earth Day in April at their Green Team event for Earth Day.
Nice.
We were one of the participating groups in that.
So since you mentioned this Friday, how about we not leave people dangling? What's going on and how can people get involved?
Well, the main thing is, just like the name says, it sounds simple, but bike to work. You know, get your bike ready this week, and you know, if your commute favors it, if it's possible, take the effort, get the exercise, get the sunshine, and ride to work. It's one of the best times of year to ride. It's
kickoff to the season.
It is. I mean, it's beautiful outside. The trees are beautiful. The weather's pleasant.
Like our friend Felix always says, you know, bicycling. His shop is solar powered. You know, it really is. It's one of those times that it's like it's hey, the sun's out. You can safely ride, because during the winter, while some of us do ride, it's a little bit more of a narrow window to ride because there's no sunlight. Right now, if you're working at 8 o'clock, you need to ride in at 6, there's sun. You get out at 6 o'clock and you ride until 8, there's sun.
And you don't have to worry about the roads being narrowed because of the snow pile.
Yeah, well, that's another factor. I mean, I think to some folks it seemed like this winter was just never going to end in our area. Yeah. And that made things treacherous, certainly for the folks that ride every single day.
Yeah, and I will warn people to still, the streets have not been completely cleared off of sand and salt and stuff like that, so it's still necessary to use caution. Yeah. That is occurring as we speak. You know, towns and everything are sweeping the streets, and it is getting done, but there's after this winter, there's still a horrible amount.
There's a tremendous, unfortunately this year, there's a tremendous amount of maintenance to be done. So you might be better off with a mountain bike than a road bike, given some of the potholes and sand conditions. But the weather has turned beautiful in a hurry.
Any word on what's going on at the Ocean Beach parking lot for biking to work for the people down there? There was talk about having people.
I don't know. I personally know that several of the employees there bike to work at Ocean Beach regularly, and I kind of wish I had a job like that. Yeah, you know, it was just a pleasant ride to the beach every day.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, I lived near the beach for many years in Pleasure Beach in Waterford and worked at L&M. Yeah, and it was a fantastic bike ride. It was, exercise and meditation and everything, and even when the weather was crummy and I got home soaking wet, it was still kind of nice.
And the other factor, as you said, the days are getting longer. The
opportunity to ride is there.
A big factor in riding and when you ride is how dark is it when you go home, because everyone knows that is a hazard. One of the things that we've done this year, and we did at L&M for Earth Day, and we've done at the shop, is and we will be doing at a farmer's market in July, is we've been distributing headlights and taillights that were provided by our DOT non-motorized. What is the official word?
Kate Rattan.
Yes.
Great shout out to Kate Rattan, local.
From DOT, but she's a New London resident, and she is the state's coordinator for all things non-motorized, so bicycle and pedestrian access.
I think to a greater degree, she actually facilitates, kind of like Kobe, just not having one person, one car.
Right. I mean, promoting alternatives to the car lifestyle that we're stuck with.
And that's another thing that we've been in communication with people like the Eastern Connecticut Transport Consortium, Kobe, Kate Rattan, people who it's like we're offering just, hey, there are alternatives to one person, one car. There are alternatives, and be it working.
And we're seeing that statewide. I'm hopeful that New London actually catches up with. New London is not doing badly in those respects, but we could do a lot more. And the state is investing heavily in getting people out of their cars. They've built this big busway that runs from New Britain to Hartford. But included with the busway, and a piece of it that hasn't gotten as much publicity, is that there's a beautiful bike lane that partly follows directly on the busway and partly follows on city streets that have been turned into actual separated bike lanes and routes that follow the bus lane all the way from New Britain to Hartford. And the interesting thing to me for these bus lanes is that they are not providing big satellite parking lots. They are intended for people to walk or bike to these bus stops or be dropped off. But to not use the car at all, and use the car as little as possible, and they're not providing large parking lots. I mean, it's something like a dozen cars at each one.
Well, we say with Shoreline East. Shoreline East allows you to take a bike on board for no charge. And commute with Metro North for a simple $5 permit. And it's really, if anyone who's been on Route 95 during the summertime. Yeah.
Which everyone has.
Of course.
Well, that's really important too, because when we've had shows about rail, one of the points that is made is when you're going somewhere, it's often the last mile to your destination that's the challenge.
Yep.
So if you can get off the train and you have a bike, then you don't have to worry. I mean, are you going to have to be able to get a cab or?
Well, that's where we would like to make a huge call, to L&M and to EB for the employees that are. I mean, they're providing shuttle services, EB's out of parking lots right now. It would be great to promote more the fact that you can bring your bike. If you live in Old Saybrook and you're working at Electric Boat in New London, or you're working at Lawrence Memorial Hospital, that last mile is really easy to do via bike.
Right, from the train station to any of these locations is a 10-minute bike ride.
Exactly, and there's not a big hill anywhere along it. The
bike lanes have been mostly provided, to L&M, goes right to their parking lot. They have finally provided actual bike racks, so you can park and lock your bike right at the front door.
And one of the things, it may not apply to most commuters, but one of the things that's happened in the last year is that Amtrak has changed their decades-old, I want to call it animosity towards bicyclists. They have actually begun providing space and cars that can carry bicycles on their trains, and that's very important also to people that use Shoreline East commuter service and have an Amtrak pass, because the Shoreline East trains could take bikes, the Amtrak trains refuse to take bikes, so it limits the opportunities, and as you say, for the last mile.
Right.
The connection, the train connection is easy. Everybody can sit down on a train, but getting to where you really want to be after that train ride, a bicycle,
it isn't an easy
if you're living car-free, or you just don't want to have to use the car, or you want the public transportation to work for you. A bicycle is just a natural range extender.
And SeatBus does provide racks for two bikes on every single bus. So that's another. I mean, we are making great progress.
So both of you have been riding for a long time and have been advocates for bicycling for a long time. Are there any other ways that you're seeing that the local and state governments and larger powers that be are starting to see the light?
Well, I think the first one that jumps to mind is Daryl. There's one. I mean, if we want to start local and then go bigger, obviously, if we just look, we're not, Copenhagen yet or anything like that, but our mayor is riding a bike, which was provided by Rob/Bike New London.
Yep.
We're seeing it right on the ground level. He did a staycation last year, embellished. Some might argue with that, the downtown on a bike.
To be perfectly honest, I mean, New London, you couldn't ask for more options and facilities to be all in one place. We have this fairly small city, one of the smallest cities in the state. We've got.
But coming to support, the mayor supported us, the fire department supported us.
But I'm saying as far as transportation options that work with the bicycle, you have the seat buses, you have ferry companies, you have the Shoreline East trains, you have the Amtrak trains, all coming right to downtown, and from that location, if you imagine departing any of those into the State Street location, from there to anywhere you'd want to be in New London is no more than 4 or 5 miles. It's very like at the very
to go to Ocean Beach is maybe 4 miles, up to the campuses is maybe.
Don't forget, we also got the bridge access, so people who are riding over the Thames River to Groton or to Mystic, the connection is right there in New London, and it's it's barely a mile from downtown.
Yeah. But back to the question about support on the government level. Once again, locally we've seen a huge amount of support. Bike New London was blessed with all the blight bikes last year from the town of New London, stuff that had been evidence bikes, seized bikes, all that kind of stuff. The mayor has become a huge proponent of biking. He'll be joining in the Bike to Work Day next Friday. On the state level, I've seen it. I just haven't seen the wheels turn as much. I've seen the rails to trails, but it's hard.
There's a lot of different initiatives, and most of them are being coordinated under DOT because these all fall into transportation issues. DOT in the last couple of years has adopted a complete streets philosophy, and I attended a complete streets roundtable workshop last year. That was held up in Middletown, and there were public work heads from a lot of towns, concerned citizens, members of different other advocacy organizations, state level and local level officials, and what we're seeing as a result of that are. There are pieces of the transportation network that are essential for biking that are starting to fall into place. The complete streets philosophy just means that when you do a project, it doesn't mean converting every single street to a bicycle lane right now. It means that when you plan your projects, you plan that bicycles are not an afterthought. They are part of the streetscape. They are part
and pedestrians.
Of bicycles and pedestrians.
It's complete streets. It means cars.
However you're getting from one place to the other.
That's it, and that's a complete. Because while we like bikes, we also understand there's other methods of transportation that need.
As for myself, if I'm driving somewhere, I want the bicyclists that I need to pass or cross paths with to be safe. The most horrible thing I can imagine is hitting someone on a bike. And, our street network in New London, it could use a lot of upgrades. People can identify certain trouble spots, and, we could probably name 50 of them around the region if we put our minds to it, where it's just little spots that it's difficult to bike through, because and that sort of ruins your commute, because you can't get from point A to B or C or D without going through that trouble spot.
So really the weakest link philosophy kind of
It's true, but
apply.
instead of focusing on the 50 or well, however many weak links that you have, there are a few that are crucial, like we were mentioning earlier,
Right.
Hodges Square. Hodges Square, which has approached us actually, they're talking about trying to get a bike shop or something going on down there, working with Conn College, the students. That is one of the critical spots where people coming from the eastern part of the state, when they cross
Right.
that bridge, they enter there, and then it's like, whoa.
And they're really, it isn't well marked. I mean, you might even want to tell people
No, I
where
mean,
it is, because if you're not a bicyclist, you wouldn't know
Mr.
how to
G's,
get on
yeah,
that
you
bridge.
go to Mr. G's.
It's not much more than a small sign nailed to a post. It's literally on a telephone pole, the marker for the bridge access. And that's crucially important. I mean, hundreds of people go over that every day. Not to mention, and now that it's summer, we will actually see bicycle tours that are riding. I mean, they could be riding all the way from Maine to Florida.
I crossed paths last summer. The guy from Germany who was going across on that bridge.
On the bridge.
On that bridge.
Wow.
And I can only imagine that guy who's going around the world. And he's like, once he got down there, I'm hoping he had a GPS or something, but I'm fairly confident. Like, okay, now what?
I can get a pizza.
Yeah, I was like, I guess I'll stop at Mr. G's, have a pizza, welcome to New London, and it's a great place to do welcome to New
but
London.
still.
Yeah. Well, New London, unfortunately, has two factors working against us. We're a very old city where the streets were laid out
Maybe
as
the cow
cart
paths, the deer
paths
paths,
and
or
cobblestones. And it didn't matter if the street was 9 feet wide. And then from the early 60s through the mid 70s, New London got beat up pretty bad by urban renewal. And Hodges Square is one of those places where it comes together. You have the paths of ancient streets intersecting with these scorched earth broad avenues that they put in after they were done bulldozing everything. Where they've built the roads large, they don't necessarily take you anywhere. And where they connect into the old infrastructure, the transition is, it's usually problematic. You come to intersections that don't work well. You come to places where all of a sudden, if you're on a bicycle, you're squeezed out.
But I actually ride that route probably once a week from Hodges Square to downtown New London. Yeah. And it's really not a big fix.
It's very short if you take Williams to Huntington,
yeah,
right?
And it's wide enough. It's just that I don't think in a non-bicycle centric culture, like a lot of people, they don't think, it's like, wow, this is where cars are zooming by and flying by.
And
bikes
actually they are zooming by.
And they are. And this bike shouldn't be here. It should rather be like, bikes.
The great thing with the Hodges Square initiative that's going on right now, and rebuild of the area, is that we're finally addressing, what was done in the late 70s was kind of like, okay, we're done, here you go, goodbye. That was the extent of the state's involvement. They put down pavement and said, live with it. And parts of the area are actually wonderful to ride through. Parts of the area leave a great deal to be desired, and I feel it's dangerous. In fact, I even got hit in my car driving on William Street this year, and I haven't been in an accident in 20 years. And that's where it happened, because the road is just, it's challenging, even to safe drivers and safe cyclists.
But Rob, with a little bit of marking, Conn College and the Academy can easily make it to Hodges Square.
Oh, I agree.
With a little bit of protection, and like it says on your back, which the people can't see, 3 feet, it's the law. If we could make it clear that bikes do belong there, are allowed to be there with everyone in a complete streets project, the Conn College kids will be a great part of revitalizing that area. And same thing with the Academy
So
kids.
there are some intersections that should get fixed. I know that where there are off-ramps that kind of merge into William Street, which is a weird way for cars to go.
Yeah,
there's
some
a lot of width
questionable
there.
things that they left New London with in the 70s, and now here it is, 2015, and we're addressing them. So it's good that someone is taking a look, a good hard look at what can be done, what's achievable, what's cost effective, how to make it more attractive, more safe, and more accessible to people who aren't in a four-wheeled vehicle.
And that actually brings up, I mean, just recently, the survey ended April 24th, Kate Harrington from URI. We partook, we lent our name and our, we got the word out on a survey for the local residents. Hey, do you know what's out there? What would you change when it comes to bike lanes?
Oh, so it was specific to bike or transit in general?
It was focused on bicycling.
Specific to bike. It's going to be, it's going to be used to lobby the state for more than just bikes, but this is the bicycle slice of the pie. Last I heard, I think we had 140 surveys that were filled out.
Something like that. Yep.
And she was shooting for about 200, which should give a decent amount of leverage when it comes to saying, hey, this is what needs to be done. And Hodges Square was one that was addressed.
It was a very detailed survey, and it included spaces in it to write in. If you, it had some suggestions about areas, and it had some places to write in your own, trouble spots. If there was something that you've seen, maybe maybe you ride across a particular intersection and have trouble with it because you're going north to south, and you have no problem because you go through it east to west, but it's a real challenge for the folks going the other way on a different route.
One of the things I really liked with that survey actually was like, hey, how often do you bike? How often do you commute? And how often would you ride? And how often?
Right.
There's like, if we do make these changes, what is going to happen? And it's like, wow, we're going to take so many motorists off the road on a long-term basis.
And that's huge. When Achieve was doing its survey maybe 8 or 9 years ago, a lot of people responded that they don't walk and they don't ride because the sidewalks are in bad shape and the roads are in bad shape.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so there are tons of people who would take advantage of it if the conditions were friendlier and safer.
Yeah. It's a similar, call it a short survey, was done with this Complete Streets conference. They invited all the members to bring their greatest success and greatest hardship to the meeting to discuss. And at the time, I got to speak about Montauk Avenue as being both a success and a failure. The success was the bike lanes, which are now complete, and lots of people enjoy them every day. And I'm happy every time I see a bicyclist riding down Montauk.
And cyclists do feel safe and comfortable riding on Montauk.
It's in a town that it has a lot of people who depend on bicycles for transportation and is very bikeable. It really helps to have a location like that that's set aside. You see it as, okay, this is a designated safe space for cyclists, and you start seeing a few people riding, then more people riding, and it's contagious. But the other thing that I was able to talk about at this group was that for a very long time, Montauk Avenue didn't have a proper pedestrian crossing along Bank Street, painted on the pavement. And of course, there's a tremendous number of people who need to walk through that area every day, getting to offices or whether you're walking up and down the street or along Montauk. I mean, people have been hit by cars there, and it's happened.
It actually still doesn't have a pedestrian cross. At the corner of Montauk and Bank, there still is no pedestrian crossing, actually, believe it or not.
I think Bank is really
not across Bank Street, but there was not one also
challenge.
across the end of Montauk, which
has
now been painted.
Yes, but there's no actual hit a button, get a walk.
There is not,
and that is
not a signal, and there needs to be.
And that is an issue if you want to go from the south end of town to the north end of town. As long as you're just going to Bank Street, you're okay. If you want to go to the other side of Bank Street,
there's a few more major accesses, Bank Street, as well as Willits, which is a great feeder. Willits needs to be addressed down the road. I think that's probably a battle that Bike New London needs to take up.
The Bank Street, the stretch of Bank Street from Coleman or Lee all the way down the hill to Shaw Street, it's tough in a car. It's difficult in a bike. It's very difficult. It's difficult to even for an experienced cyclist, to cooperate with the traffic through there. It's hectic. The intersections don't line up well. The light timing.
And there are a lot of lights.
There are a lot of lights in a short distance. There's a lot of left turn lanes, and there's a lot of things going on for a cyclist. And unfortunately, what that leads to is a lot of frustration, and cyclists cross the road illegally, pedestrians cross the road illegally. To some extent, they have no other choice. There are really few practical options through that area. I would hope that Public Works or the state is able to address that area and improve it. But it's a place where these seven,
it needs to be people who have the piece of paper that says urban planner and stuff like that. It's not something that we're a loose organization. We can lobby for it, but there really needs to be some
It's a place where you have these ancient avenues that have always been there, intersecting with the car culture and a huge traffic volume that needs to go maybe zigzag across an intersection to get to the other side. And I'm not sure what the answer is. I mean, I've looked at it and thought, how could I improve it? And I'm not sure. But
I think it is somewhat hopeful that there are people who are interested in urban planning, landscape architects, who also love biking.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that overlap of interests might lead to some creative planning into the future. One thing that I've become a little bit interested in recently are places that do demonstration pop-up bike lanes. And I keep wondering if, like, Williams Street could be a place where there could be a demonstration project.
Or Bank Street. If you just have no parking on the right side of Bank Street and you turn that into a pop-up lane, it's like, whoa, this actually flows. And that's a great idea.
There are things along those lines that happen across the country. There's an event called Cyclavia in Los Angeles, where the bicyclists take over the streets on a Sunday. Wow. And it's a little more formal than a critical mass ride. It's organized, and it's sanctioned by the police and everything. But it's a really interesting take on the city you think of as the most car-friendly, car culture city in the country.
Well, what I like with the pop-up lane, though,
30,000 people show up for these things.
The five boroughs, great. Everyone rides bikes that day.
Right. It's not Bike New York.
It's not feasible on a 365, 24/7 basis. Right. But when you do pop-up bike lanes, what you see are the possibilities by eliminating a row of parking. It's like, wait a second, if these cars, and we do have parking on Bank Street, readily available in the back. If you can't park during the day, people ride bikes. That is a possibility. Williams Street, there are possibilities that'll show you long-term, not what can be done 365.
And it's a little bit of thinking outside of the box. I mean, I sort of equate it to, if you've ever driven in Boston during rush hour, they take over the breakdown lanes for extra travel lanes. Well, that's breaking the rules, you know. Yeah. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you can't do that, but at 5 o'clock, you can. So it's a way of thinking, and it sort of exposes us to some different solutions to making places more bicycle friendly. You know, maybe it could be done in the summer when it's a
well, I would love to see it being done,
more popular option
down Bank, so it completes at the end of Montauk. People coming down from L&M use that bike lane, can then fly down Bank, make it to the train station, hop in the train, go to their home in Old Saybrook, wherever they are. Right. The people who don't live in New London.
Right, because it's easy to get from L&M to Bank Street on Montauk.
Yeah, but if you're next,
then the next lap of it is not so easy.
If you're, you're in your middle-aged L&M worker riding through that traffic, I mean, I love doing it. I live for that kind of stuff. But you just came off a 12, 14-hour shift.
And you got people beeping at you, and they're bigger.
And they're riding an SUV. All you want to do is make sure you make it home safe. The likelihood that you are going to ride on that bike home,
Yeah, and when I was young, I also, before I worked at L&M, I worked on Home Street, and I was biking from Pleasure Beach to Home Street, and I was taking Great Neck Road to, Boston Post and Bank Street. So I was in the middle of that traffic. I have to say, I would not want to be doing that
Oh,
now.
Great Neck? No.
No.
That one flies too.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about the shop.
Yeah, well, let's talk about
So we have a picture here of a bike that has a little bit of a story.
Laura.
Okay. Yeah.
And a name,
well,
too.
Well, no, that's not the name of the bike.
Let's back up a couple of steps from
It's
that.
the name of the
Okay.
cadet, actually.
Yeah. So last summer, early in the summer,
I was actually at Felix Orlandi's shop, Tail Recyclery.
Right.
And if anyone who's ever been there, after hours, about this time of the year, after hours, I mean after school hours, if they were to witness the 4, 6, 8, 10 kids that show up on 4 bikes, the 8 of them, and there's 4 breaks to go, among the 8 of them.
not on every bike.
No, not on every bike. And the tires, I call them bikes because they have 2 wheels and handles. So I'm losing this. It was
loosely defined.
Very loosely defined. And Felix, who has a heart of gold, would just, help these kids. And I was there sometimes wrenching. I just realized there is a need for these kids. You can't depend on someone like Felix out of the goodness of his heart to be doing this. And he couldn't, because the kids didn't have access to cables and pads and stuff that. So
Right, and he was trying to make a business work.
Yeah, well, yeah, he runs a commercial bike shop. We were lucky enough to partner with New London Main Street, with Create Here Now, which was, I want to call them the right place, right time.
Well, that's it.
They
Having
made-
seen that, and there was a call to action, like, hey, if you guys want to open something up, we maybe have a possibility for you guys here. And that was open to everyone. It was like, wow, definitely.
Right, they put it out there.
Demand.
And
They
then
put it
to
out
see
there.
Who
Who and
responded.
certain spaces were available. They focused mainly on State Street for a location, and they wanted to. New London Main Street wanted to populate storefronts, and the idea of seeding them was to come up with give some commercial businesses, some viable businesses, a little kickstart. Our business is
Non-commercially
yeah,
viable.
well, let's talk about it. So it goes to the structure of the group. We're not a commercial entity. We're a not-for-profit
Organization.
group that, this is actually the first time that we've had a home. I think, as I mentioned, we had these Bike Fest events where we were doing free bike repairs for folks in the neighborhood. Well, as of last July, we, through this collaboration, we were able to take over a storefront on State Street. And we suddenly had this space, and we had folks with ability, and we all had a pocket full of tools. And we started out on day one with 18 bikes from the city and opened the doors at 310 State Street. And it was supposed to be a 3-month pop-up project. Well, now we're coming up on a year into it. We closed during the summer, during the winter. We had a bike yard sale in the fall.
By closed, we didn't have physical operations, but we were still out there lobbying.
And this is the interior,
This
right?
is that's the inside.
Yeah, that's
of
the
shop.
interior. It's much more. When we took over, it used to be Hannafin's. It's located at 310 State Street.
Yeah, so it's kind of a rough storefront space because
Still is.
yeah, a bit. And we did some renovations inside there to make it more attractive and to make it work better for us, with the intent of becoming a more permanent fixture downtown. And every time the doors are open, we're addressing a need in the community. So we're helping adults and kids to work on their own bikes, to learn how to work on bikes. We operate on donations. We receive bicycles that are maybe unwanted or unneeded from private donations. We've had we had great help from the New London Fire Department, particularly North Station guys.
Tim Jeffries.
On Broad
He's
Street.
awesome.
They were awesome. They got us lots of kids' bikes last year that some of their own kids, I think, had outgrown.
Same thing for some of the guys from my hockey team.
You know, we were able to make a lot of families happy by offering some of those bikes at as little as $5. We have all kinds of bikes in the shop. We have road bikes and hybrids and mountain bikes and kids' bikes, BMX bikes, and it changes almost every day.
Yeah. And we knew there was a need. That, I mean, exactly. we knew from historically.
The need is, there's no question about the need in London.
The great things that we saw, actually, that I didn't expect were the kids being, everyone being empowered. People who, you know, did not have either have the skill, that got the skill, didn't have a bike, got a bike, got jobs because they now had transportation.
I think the thing that kind of gets you is the having the kids tell you, nobody's ever shown me that before. And myself, I was lucky enough to grow up with at least a little bit of instruction and a wrench in my hand and you know, a couple bikes to play with. And I sort of taught myself, but I've been able to teach dozens of people.
Try hundreds.
Yeah.
Don't undersell yourself.
It probably is. It could be in the hundreds. You know.
Don't undersell yourself.
Kids and adults of all ages who come to us with a problem with a bike, and we're able to fix it. And more important than that, we're able to show them how to fix it. So maybe
and
it doesn't
one step
happen
further,
again in the future.
How many times have we seen the great thing is, so yeah, Rob talks about teaching kids, and I've taught kids. But it hadn't been 2 or 3 weeks into last year's shop that we had kids teaching kids. We had 3, 4 kids alone, unsupervised. I didn't say that. But, you know, I mean, working on a bike, one kid being like a junior mechanic, working with the other kids, say, hey, go get this. And then one kid would know how to patch a flat. He'd go off and do that. Other kids adjusting the brakes. And next thing you know, they built a bike among themselves, recycled.
It passes down from one to the next. And that you're right. That was a moment there when we realized we have a, you know, like this 14-year-old guy who is showing other 14-year-old guys how to you know, how to take a wheel off or how to fix a chain or something like that.
It's the classic give the man a fish or teach the man to fish. It was that classic.
Now the bad news is we have like 2 minutes left.
Oh.
So maybe you can tell people what the hours are and how they can find you in the shop and you know, what else they can find there.
So Bike New London, our shop is at 310 State Street, and we're open Tuesdays and Sundays through May, 1 to 5 in the afternoon.
And by appointment, if you contact us via Bike New London on Facebook.
Yeah, get a hold of us on Facebook, get a hold of us
and they're very prompt
by
responding on Facebook.
We try to be.
Yeah, we try our best. I mean, we're all volunteers. That's the important thing to get out there, is that this is a
and we need
community
volunteers.
shop.
We need volunteers. You want to work on bikes, you want to help kids, you have extra bikes, we need bikes, we need volunteers.
Right.
We really do.
Yep. We're happy to take donations of bicycles. We're happy to even to pick them up or to receive them at the shop. They can be written off on your taxes.
So Tuesday and Sunday from 1 to 5 and by appointment.
Yep. 310 State Street.
Yep. 310 State Street. We're just down the hill from the library, across from the Guard Theater.
Now, in the last minute, are there any events coming up that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, we have a trip to Shelter Island next weekend, actually.
Right.
So it's departing on Friday. The Ranowski family has been gracious enough to actually give us free access to the ferries. We're going to Shelter Island, 2-night stay at the Bird Preserve, and it's $99 per person.
Yep.
And
it's a bike camping event.
Yeah, and it's as bike friendly as it gets. If you like birds, if you like bikes, if you like the ferry.
So people who want to participate in that should email us. That would be best at bicyclenl@gmail.com.
Okay. Bicyclenl@gmail.com.
Bicycle,
Yep.
All
Or
one word.
message us via Facebook as well.
Facebook as well.
And I mean, it's phenomenal value. $99, 2 nights lodging, ferries both ways.
Yep.
I mean, we can't thank enough the people who've backed us up on that.
And the proceeds benefit
It benefits Bike New
Bike-
London.
Yep.
And the community bike shop.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. We could have used another 10 minutes or so, but, you know, there will just have to be another time.
We like bikes. We'll talk about
We
bikes all
love
day.
bikes. Thanks, Rhonda.
Well, thank you both for coming on, and check out the bike shop in person. Next week, our guest will be Martina Bottinelli, and she'll be talking about retail learning, another downtown endeavor.
Who we've actually done activities with, by the way.
So, yeah, thank you again.
Thanks, Rana.
Thanks.
Stay with me. All I want is just one dream. Anything I would do for this moment. Here and now, let me let your hair